Hello, my name's Mzizi, and I really like DOS games. In contrast, a lot of my friends grew up playing consoles and missed out on a lot of what DOS had to offer. These are some of the games I've used successfully over the years to lure people into the world of DOS. They're fun, they're creative, they're resourceful, they're appropriate for all ages and ability levels. First up,
Wacky Wheels and Scuddy Cart were the PC competitors of a certain well-known series featuring that one Nintendo mascot. Wacky Wheels was my preference by far. There's a varied set of animals to choose from, like Uno, Sultan, Morris, or Blumbo, the elephant
who never forgets to kill!
Everyone had a favourite. I really like the shark. You can play head-to-head or have all the animals on the track, which is more fun. The latter is also more forgiving for people who aren't experienced gamers, and more engaging and satisfying for those who are. There's also quite a decent amount of tracks. Wacky Wheels also features what it calls giggle keys. What are giggle keys? By pressing set keys, you can spawn a set of varied and obscenely obnoxious devils on your competitor's screen. It's incredibly annoying and it drives them nuts, but it's the kind of thing that you're immune to when you're the instigator. It really appeals to that little gremlin in everybody's mind. Or maybe just my mind. Alongside your standard split-screen multi-race, Wacky Wheels also features a battle mode, where you pelt hedgehogs at each other. Even the hedgehogs themselves are full of personality. One's doing construction work, one's doing yo-yo tricks, one's on the toilet. What else do you want? This game has a lot of little details I really like. It's fun, it's full of charm, and it doesn't make me feel physically ill like Scunny Cart does. Certified classic. In randomly generated fields, you, your friends, and optional computer players can fight to the death. It's sort of somewhere in between gorillas and worms in general style of gameplay. Any combination of 10 tanks in total can play at one time. That said, once more than 3 or 4 players get involved, it can get a little bit tedious waiting for turns. There are several tanks to choose from, but that's mostly an aesthetic thing. If you do add 1 or more PC players into the mix, you also have the option of picking their intelligence levels, which is a nice way to skew the difficulty curve. Or if things get heated, you and your fellow humans can gang up on a PC instead. You can also change various limitations, economics and physics, and graphical options. There's quite a lot of different terrain, and money allows you to unlock certain weapons and other items, which greatly impact gameplay. The array of items in this game really help to keep things from getting stale. Some of them are pretty useless, but some of them are fairly iconic, particularly the Funky Bomb. You may accidentally kill yourself in the process of using it, but it's frequently worth it for the entertainment factor. Scorched Earth is simple enough that anyone can play it, but there's always a way to make it comfortably challenging for anyone who chooses to. One last thing. Scorched Earth has the option to make the tanks display lines of snarky dialogue per turn. If you're playing against somebody else, you can actually go and edit the game talk files. You can modify them subtly, or you can go and edit every single line as obnoxiously as you like. It's something I really enjoyed doing when I was a kid, and still do now, to be honest. One Must Fall 2097 is peak DOS fighting game. Each player pilots a giant 3D robot, each with distinctive special attacks. However, anytime I load this one up, me and whoever I'm playing with pretty much just sit jamming out to the theme tune for a good couple of minutes fast. It's very good. This game's roughly 30 years old, and in terms of graphics, gameplay, and soundtrack, it still holds up really well. There are several different arenas to choose from, as well as several different robots. Each bot has a unique moveset, and it's a fair bit of work to master them all. The main setback of this game is that if someone's experienced in playing it, the ability levels can be a little bit off balance. However, the variety of battle arenas aren't just for aesthetics, they contain unique hazards too. If you're playing with someone who isn't doing so well, you might want to try the Desert Arena, because it features the random arena-based event that's hardest to avoid. You can also play around with robots you're more or less familiar with to try and even the odds. Despite that, people always get so excited when I mention this game, and for good reason. It's fun to play, fun to master, and easily a top pick. Boppin might actually be my number 1 pick, if it wasn't somewhat finicky to calibrate for co-op. It's not too instinctive to get working in 2-player mode on a modern PC. However, if you're especially determined, or have a dusty old PC lying around in the garage, it's worth booting it up for Boppin. It's a block-matching puzzle game which allows for 2 simultaneous players. You puppeteer one of 2 martini-shaped avatars, Yeet or Boik. With a unique story concept and new tile sets for every level, Boppin masters world building like no other puzzle game before it. It keeps things exciting by promoting constant flushes of anticipation and a smattering of violence to spice things up. I do also have to mention the soundtrack, which is fascinating, but definitely an acquired taste for many. It's Bejeweled, it's Tetris, it's Columns, it's similar to all of those cult block based puzzle games, but you can play with 2 people, and it's genuinely more fun to do so. Each player gets their own lives and points, which is definitely more prone to saving relationships than shared HP is. And you get to maim an overly saccharine bear dressed as a rabbit. And his family. What other puzzle game lets you do that? It's mini-golf, Emmy. There are stacks of mini-golf games. What's so special about this one? Well, like the other DOS games on this list, it hones in on what it wants to do, and it does it well. The graphics, soundtrack, and gameplay are all distinctive and very high quality. This can actually be quite a challenging game, but its addictive space aesthetic will make it worth your while. Up to 4 players can join in, and it's very engaging for most ages. There are quite a number of courses, and ways to optimise your game, so there's definitely replay value too. Just note, whoever goes after player 1 gets to learn from both their mistakes and their successes. So if you're playing with a sore loser, it might be safer to let them go second. The one major issue with this game is, if one player runs out of turns, the game is over for them, whereas anyone else playing can keep going. This is an especially prominent issue with longer courses, so it's best to start with a smaller course to begin with. Cyberdogs is a top-down shooter featuring randomised maze-like levels. It's fairly straightforward, but good fun nonetheless. If you want a game with someone who finds first-person shooters intimidating or unenjoyable, this is a good starting compromise, or maybe even a winning tool if you're particularly determined. There are 3 characters to choose from, and a range of weaponry. You go around shooting dudes and stealing their vital supplies, like files, floppy disks, and teddy bears. It can be a little bit samey after a while, but it's surprisingly good at holding your attention considering. When I was about 12, I once stayed up all night playing this through with one of my friends, and I can see why. If you find yourself a particular fan of Cyberdogs, it might also be worth checking out Sea Dogs for even more content. I've previously described this game as sort of like California games, but with a bit more edge. It was definitely the epitome of cool for a little girl playing DOS games in the 90s anyway. This was far from a DOS exclusive, but unlike many other games released on multiple systems at the time, I think the DOS version holds up really well. Yet again, you basically just jam out to the title theme for a good minute before actually getting into the gameplay. Each player takes turns competing in a range of sick events. Snowball Blast, Downhill Blitz, Acro Aerials, Inner Tube Thrash, and Snowboard Halfpipe. They're pretty fun, with a bunch of little gameplay Easter eggs scattered throughout. You can play them individually, or simply compete all. First up, Snowboard Halfpipe. We love it, it's great. You're having a good time, you're doing little tricks, you're jamming out, some dude's insulting you in the top right. I like games that have a little bit of personality to them. Most of the games on this list have got a lot of personality, and it really makes you feel more immersed in them. This is a good one. Next we've got Snowball Blast, where you just murder children. That's what you do, you try and throttle children with snowballs, which is fun. Sometimes Yetis, which is also fun. Get some revenge for all the times you died in Ski Free. Downhill Blitz is probably my least favourite of the bunch, but that's probably just because I never mastered it. But it's more fun in co-op, and it's always enjoyable to have a good-natured laugh at everyone doing badly. In contrast, Acro Aerials was my absolute favourite event. It's very short. Too short, I would say. You each get a few turns being judged for performing spine-defying tricks mid-air. Keyboard mashing works to an extent, but mastering moves takes a bit of practice. Inner Tube Thrash is the only event which literally puts multiple players head-to-head simultaneously. There are mechanics of this one that I still genuinely don't quite understand, but it's fun to face off in real time for a change. And that's it. There's an element of luck to the different events, and different people are good at different things, so everyone has an opportunity to do well. Yay! Game show segment! I love this game more than is reasonable. For some reason I'm a bit of a maniac for any games that involve drawing. It's a bit like Pictionary, but the PC does the drawing and you do the guessing. It's definitely a bit of fun if your eyes can handle the CGA palette and polygon player sprites. I know a lot of people can't handle this CGA palette, but I get a little dopamine rush whenever I see it. This game is based on a TV show, and for its age there's a surprising amount of content in it. You choose from one of 6 avatars and each takes 60-second turns guessing the phrase drawn on screen. When playing this game with others, often the person next to you will be unable to resist yelling out the answer, even when it's not their turn. As such, it often ends up being a game of willpower above all else. Some of the pictures are horrendous, but that's actually to your benefit, as you may eventually get the same puzzle twice and due to the baffling imagery go, "What on earth is that?" Then there's the speed round where you name common objects. It seems straightforward, but can be a chance to even out any major point discrepancies, especially if someone gets the one puzzle with a typo in it, or just some uncommon terms. You can get through a whole game in about 5 or 10 minutes. It's just a fun little game that I really enjoy. A round of win, lose or draw always brightens my mood. That said, I'm speaking from the perspective of a native English speaker who for some reason has been exposed to a lot of idioms. If you want more mainstream puzzles, the second edition might be the way to go, but the drawings are generally far worse. Pirates are cool. You get to be one. Now this game I only heard about roughly 2 or 3 years ago, but it's an absolute classic. As a side note, it has one of my favourite uses of the 16 colour palette. A lot of EGA DOS games have a somewhat similar art style, but this one really utilises it in a unique way. It's basically a board game, but you get to play as one of 5 pirates, including a parrot. A lot of people are drawn to the parrot, and rightly so. How often do you get to play as a parrot? If you're playing one-on-one, what I would genuinely recommend you do is activate Blackbeard regardless. He's the only character who's properly voiced. His voice clips are just so engaging and entertaining that it helps keep the game lighthearted. Various events trigger each turn, such as pirate trivia, purchasing of supplies, battles, and many others. A game takes approximately 20 to 30 minutes to get through, depending on how many people are playing. You may not all be experts on pirate facts, but there's enough random chance to keep everyone on reasonably equal footing. Funnily enough, I think this is the game that has caused the most unrest between playing parties of all the ones I've mentioned. It's tedious yet entertaining, challenging, competitive, and at times uncomfortably true to life. Up to 4 players can join in. Each picks one of these delightful avatars and you live out your life. You can set the goals for each character, which is a nice way to ensure an even playing field if needed. If it looks a little different to how you remember, the version on screen is the deluxe edition. I actually don't think it's quite as charming as the other editions, but each to their own, it's fairly similar. So, you need to eat, get a job, pay your rent, get educated. That said, technically all of those things are optional, but avoiding them has consequences. Harsh ones. For example, instead of seeking education, you can straight up just work at the burger joint forever, but your earnings will stagnate and you won't meet your goals. You can skip eating, but then you'll have less time due to hunger next round. The game is riddled with lots of little features that are less apparent, which warrant exploration and multiple playthroughs. For example, buying a fridge means that you can store food for multiple turns and thereby save time. If you buy a computer, you can use it to earn a passive income. If you walk around with heavy pockets, you may get robbed. And that's just for starters. You are the protagonist of a piece of media in the 90s, so naturally you wear the same clothes every day. But they get worn out, because it's also a game of life. So be careful or you might wind up in your undergarments. And as you work your way up various corporate ladders, you will also need to dress the part. Eventually, when someone meets all their criteria, they are the winner. An interesting thing about this one is that it will actually let any other players keep going, but I usually end it there. Jones is a very good game, but you might want to have something to refresh your gaming palette afterwards. I've seen people get frustrated with this one, and it's not necessarily going to leave someone in a joyous mood. But most people remember this game fondly, and with good reason. It's a game of life and fortitude and stamina and fries, and I feel like it should be played in schools, because it really emulates some hard truths.
So, what did you think? Did I ring any nostalgia bells, or did I just straight up miss your favourite? If so, please let me know in the comments below so that I can make it mine. Please let me know if you do play any of these games in the past, present, or future, and thanks for watching. Bye!